Good afternoon, and very apologies for a very slightly late start to this operational services meeting. One or two technical issues that have now been resolved. This meeting is being live streamed. Should the live stream go down, we will continue the meeting, and the live stream it will be reconnected as soon as is possible. We're not expecting any fire drills, so if the fire alarm does start, please make your way to the exits and do not leave the lifts. Do we have any public questions, Patrick? No. No public questions. Do we have any apologies or substitutes? I thought somebody had been shot.
Yes.
Any apologies or substitutions?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Martin Goodall has given his apologies and Councillor David Miller is acting as his substitute.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? No? And are you happy for me to sign the minutes after the meeting of the Operational Services Committee held on the 23rd of June as a true and accurate record? Yeah, I didn't spot anything. Yeah, okay. I have no chair's announcements, so we will now move on to agenda item number 6, which is the Community Safety Partnership update. We've got Emma. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. Liz Every, the Chair of the CSP, apologises that she is not able to present this report, but she is away and our Vice Chair has commitments. I am here as East Cambs District Council's Neighbourhood and Community Safety Team Leader to offer this additional written report by the Chair of the CSP on CSP activities. Liz appreciates that this is quite detailed, but wanted to provide a comprehensive understanding of the CSP. You will note from the report the number and scope of the area of regional boards that we attend, providing local feedback and identifying trends. These boards influence decision-making at a district, county and national level. At these meetings, government strategy and initiatives are disseminated to us, which are reported back to our own CSP board. A very valuable forum is the OPCC's CSP Chairs meeting, where good practice is shared. It also provides benchmarking information from other districts. It must be emphasised that East Cambridgeshire is a low crime area, but is flanked by other districts and cities that are less so. Looking at overlapping issues from each partner's perspective provides an even more focused, collaborative partnership approach and considers particular locations and communities, i.e. an even more place-based approach. We are already working alongside partners on thematic topics at a force level, including domestic abuse, sexual violence, serious violence and reoffending. We held our CSP board meeting on the 2nd of September and I can share some of the issues discussed there. But before doing so, could I ask if there are any questions on the report before you? If there are, I will note them and take them away for the CSP to respond to you in writing.
Thank you, Emma. Does anybody have any questions to be directed to Mark?
Yeah, just at the top of page 4 of the report, page 21 of the agenda pack, there's mention of, in South Cambs, they now have an independent advisory group. So this was I think the update from Inspector Birch. I just wonder if we could go back and ask when we could expect something similar in East Cambs, because it does indicate that slightly to other districts will have that in at some point.
I will do, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Trapp.
Thank you. Bottom of the same page, the first paragraph, the last paragraph, first sentence, it says EC is at the bottom of the league tables. Does that mean it's the worst or the best in terms of violence? It's not clear from that.
I will do, Councillor. Thank you.
Where are you looking? Where is that, John? Sorry?
Page 20.
Oh, page 20.
The last paragraph says key findings.
I would say that means we're the least violent. Yes, yeah?
Well,
if you're at the top of the league table, that means you're probably the most violent.
Well,
I will go back and I will clarify.
Descending or ascending order.
Okay. Councillor Colbert.
Thank you. The paragraph above that, I'd just be interested in a bit more information. It's talking about violence in the home, particularly domestic abuse, from year 8 students, which I think are 12-year-olds. I'd be interested to know whether that's something that's coming from their parents or from siblings, please.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Any other questions to go back to the CSP? Carry on then. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you, Chair. So at our meeting, we welcomed our new OPCC officer, Lydia Barlow, to the team. Our targets for Q1 of the action plan were monitored and current issues were discussed. Minutes of this meeting are available to councillors upon request. The partners received a presentation on road safety by the police, which identified the worrying statistics of road accidents and fatalities, particularly around young drivers and motorcyclists. There will be a strong emphasis on education, and all agencies and organisations are urged to spread the word for the need of safe driving. Reporting incidents to the police remains a vital part of deployment. They are grateful that this has increased, but we are still not convinced the current statistics reflect the true picture. However, and somewhat sadly, Ely City Centre and Riverside have been identified by the government as a hotspot area over the summer, which has resulted in 2 additional officers and overtime agreed to deal with the rising ASB incidents in this area and Littleport. That is the end of my report, Chair.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions for Emma? Councillor Whelan.
Going back to the road safety, and does those incidents include the motorised scooters that are, I know we don't have any legal ones in this area, because the ones that are being trialled in Cambridge are the legal ones and they're registered and everything. Does that include those that are not legal, officially legal? I would like to know how many reports of incidents involving them are sort of recorded, please.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll get that clarified.
I have to say, I do find that when I speak to my parish councils, they often are moaning about drivers going around the villages at high speed, and I do encourage them to report it. Just putting it on Facebook, I repeatedly tell them, is not the same as reporting it either on 101, Crime Stoppers, or directly to the police station or to the police if you see it happening and you can get a number plate. So I think if we can all encourage our parish councils, town councils, to make sure that the reporting is done direct to the police in whatever forum they choose to use, because then once they've got the data, then they can act. But just putting it on Facebook, I'm afraid, doesn't cut the mustard. Any other questions for Emma? Thank you very much. Then, as this agenda item is just for noting, are we happy to note and move on? Thank you very much. Thank you, Emma. We now move on to agenda item 7 and welcome Kat to the hot seat. And this is the Q1 25-26 performance report for the waste and street cleansing services. Off you go, Kat.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to provide the Q1 performance report for the waste and street cleansing service provided by ECSS for this committee to note. In short, the performance remains consistent with previous quarters and on par with last year. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Catherine? Councillor Inskip.
Yeah, I have a question on, so on 4.5, it states that recycling rate was just under 50%, and that's expected this time of year when golden waste is lower. But if I looked in the tables later on, I looked at the last quarter and 12 months ago, and the previous quarter and 12 months ago, you can see that same sort of cyclic reduction, but the figures in the last 2 quarters are lower than 12 months ago. So trying to estimate from that graph, it looks like we're overall over the year, unless we suddenly get a big uptick in the quarter we haven't got data for yet, we're actually going to be lower than we were in previous years.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a national trend that they're stagnating, if not falling. But this, in terms of the trend, we see the percentage reduce. But yes, there is a overall nationally, that's what's happening, which is why we've introduced, obviously, the new services.
And do we have any insight into why the national impact is?
Not really. I I can go away and have a look a bit more into it, but nothing that strikes me, no.
Are you talking just about the green waste, Mark, or just
In
waste?
general.
In general.
Yeah.
I mean, from the recap meetings that I've sat in on, things are just weighing less, so there's less tonnage. I think, would that be fair to say? You have a dry summer, dry autumn. Often these things, I mean, we've still got a whole trees full of leaves, whereas they would normally be starting to fall about now. But it has been a very dry summer. I'm not sure if that would make a difference in terms of tonnage. Sorry, David?
Sorry, Chair, speaking out of turn. It makes a huge difference.
Yes.
With my background in horticulture, I'm fully aware of that.
Yeah. Did you have something else to say as well?
The only other thing I wanted to say was pass on my congratulations to the team. I think you do a great job.
Yeah. What a difference a couple of years makes. Councillor Colbert.
Yes, please, I've got a question. Are we responsible for the collection of deceased animals on public land and the roads?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, I don't really want to know this, but do you keep figures for it?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I kind of feel like I ought to ask for them to be presented, please. That's it, thanks.
David.
Sorry, just as an aside, to inform Councillor Colbert, a good contact of mine is actually one of the individuals who gets the job of going round and picking up the bodies.
Yes, it's a very distressing sight. I seem to see more and more badgers, bizarrely. And I'm been told there is a reason for that, but they're not necessarily being killed by cars, but thrown out by farmers. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to add on the reporting. So the only data that we report on the waste and street cleansing service is the data that's within the MOA. So we wouldn't be adding additional data points to this. This is an already agreed. Council agrees what gets reported through to this committee.
But if you want a list, I'm sure Kat would be happy to provide you with a list separately.
Yeah.
Christine, if you want that.
Well, no, I don't really. It's more a question of the public being clear about who's responsible for what. Because
if you could let your residents know that the council are responsible for any deceased animals.
And to whom these things should be reported.
Straight through to our customer services, and then they'll pass it on.
Yeah. Thanks.
In which case, then we're happy to note and move on. On to street cleansing review, and let's see how it's going. Over to you, Kat.
Thank you, Chair. So in front of you now is the report on the outcome of the street cleansing service review, which is requesting that committee notes that the existing street cleansing specification, with the inclusion of the updates as set out in sections 4.4 and 4.5, is fit for purpose and no further changes are required, and that the committee instructs the Director Operations to include this specification within the broader ECSS service contract currently being renewed in 2026 to support the rollout of the new bin collection service. This report, and I reference specifically page 43, shows that over the past year, performance has generally continued to improve, with requests to deal with issues mainly decreasing, and ECSS's response to them has generally got better. Also, the quarterly performance reports submitted to this committee have been noted without major concern. The reduction in staff sickness has helped this achievement, as have actions that ECSS have taken. For example, in the past year, they've given their staff training and purchased equipment to support safer working practices so that they can work on the national speed limit roads without a footpath that are in our district, which have always been a challenge. There is still room for improvement with some of the key performance indicators yet to be achieved, but analysis of these areas has shown that this is because ECSS have no minimum level of staff resource in place. Despite that reduction in sickness absence, when an operative takes holiday as an example, there is no one to cover. The cross-member working party did consider various options to change the specification, resulting in an increase or decrease in both costs and performance, but it was felt that this wasn't necessary. With a minimum resource level introduced next year, there is every opportunity to achieve those KPIs. The service is won't be constantly catching up, and problematic areas such as roads that have frequently parked cars on them can be dealt with proactively, with residents asked to move those cars on specific days. And the addition of a waste team within the council also gives opportunity to develop the awareness of the service provided, giving confidence to residents that if a street needs cleaning, it will be done. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Colbert, can I draw your attention to page 43 and the graphs there? It talks about the amount, and I'm staggered, how many dead animals have been removed. It doesn't tell you what variety they are, but it does show you the removal of dead animals. I know, I was staggered. But that is the quantity, but I don't suppose even you would know what type of animal was removed.
Possibly. I could look at the data if it's recorded.
No, that's 100% necessary. We move on to questions. We have got we're going to note 2.1, but we need to vote on 2.2. I propose from the Chair that we accept the recommendation. Do I have a seconder?
Chair, second the recommendation.
Thank you. Right, let's move back to questions now for Cat. Councillor Brown, Councillor Whelan, Councillor Trapp, in that order, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I pose the question on this report, coming back to the dead animals, as an example, as the chap I was talking about, whilst mostly he seems to be badgers, deers, he's also picked up greyhounds, swans, all kinds of things over the years. Anyway, so coming back to this report, I just really wanted to lay a marker on page 39, and it's paragraph 3.18, where we're talking about autumn leaves and cleansing roads that cars are parked on. One of the biggest issues we have in Burwell, and I guess it will be shared by a few of the other villages in particular, is around harvest time, straw blocking gutters, blowing off the back of lorries. I won't mention what happened on the A14 last week, but it caused significant problems day after day on there. And really, it's just a case of laying the marker. It's not just about clearing autumn leaves. The amount of straw that blocks our gutters, resulting in flooding and goodness knows what else in costs, is something I think we need to try and address in some way. Quite what that way is, I'm not sure.
Councillor Brown and I discussed this earlier, and I was staggered to know that there is no requirement for these straw moving or hay moving people to actually tarp their loads. So, you know, it's allowed to blow wherever it does, and I wonder, you know, just because it's difficult doesn't mean to say we shouldn't do it, whether or not we need to perhaps ask our MP to bring it up, whether or not we can write from the Chair, whether we can write from the Council to ask whether or not something can be done by DEFRA, because we can't be the only people in the country that this affects. It must affect everyone where they're moving straw. And it does create an unholy mess and puts an enormous burden on our street cleansing teams, which doesn't seem to be terribly fair when, if they tarped it, it could certainly, wouldn't stop it necessarily, but it would reduce it a huge amount, was my thought. Anybody else thoughts? Councillor Whelan.
Yeah, that's something that was raised quite a few years ago about the amount of straw when they were looking at the straw pellets and all of that, that planning application a long time ago. And that was then highlighted. But the question I was going to ask, moving aside from that, was that the letters you put out on the streets, obviously you now put out street letters like was suggested. Has that had more of an impact, do you think? People actually moving their cars so their streets are cleaned?
I've not heard otherwise. I mean, that's a one for ECSS, but I can check. But I've not heard that it has been a problem.
Thank you. Two things. One, I know it's sort of peculiarity of mine, but sometimes we have residents and sometimes we have customers. It'd be nice to just have residents in the report. I don't think they're customers as such. But I was intrigued by the page 43, and I couldn't quite understand graph 3, where it says percentage as the, it said number of requests, and then it had a percentage scale on the left-hand side, and I was wondering what that meant.
So each of those areas, ECSS have a target response time, and that's just showing whether they've achieved that response time or not, so the percentage of those that were achieved.
Right. Okay, so sometimes we've been quite low. All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for Kat? No? In which case... Oh, Councillor Inskip.
It's not really a question, but it was just joining in on the straw debate, having a straw burning power station in my ward. Yeah, it's not every... It's noticeable when you do have a lorry or vehicle go through that hasn't maybe tied down the straw as well as others. So it's not every vehicle. No, but but yeah, you certainly notice it when it does happen. And certainly when I say it's not every vehicle, that we have daily deliveries of straw to the power burning plant. But I think it is worth trying to. I do agree it's worth trying to see if we can do something or lobby to try and get better standards.
Councillor Brown.
Just to add a bit of detail as far as the specific issues in Burl are concerned, there are significant hot spots, and it's because they load the straw bales so high and there's overhanging trees and it knocks all the straw off. In fact, just outside my house, it knocked a full bale off. That bale lasted about half a day, and I think every guinea pig owner in the village came with a carrier bag and cleared it up.
Further contributions to debate.
Right, do we have any further contributions to debate before we move to the vote on 2.2? Councillor Inskip.
Yeah, just to say, I think it's well overdue that we've done this, and I'm glad that we have looked at the street cleansing review. I know there are reasons why this why this has taken longer to do, but clearly it's a service that it is improving, but it has needed to improve, and it's suffered particularly when we were having the problems with the waste collection service, because staff were being diverted away from this service. I think that now that we've looked at what the standards should be and looked at the staffing, I'm encouraged by that, and I am rather surprised by the outcome that we didn't have the minimal resource levels available, but I am pleased that there's proposal to correct that from next April, because I think, you know, staffing a service which doesn't cover things like service and absence is never going to be able to deliver the full service you need. So I think it's important that we get that right.
Thank you. Anybody else anything to say? In which case, then, if we're happy to note 2.1 and can have a show of hands for the recommendation for 2.2. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Kat. That's you done. Now we have the new waste collection service, the project update. Welcome, Nick. Away you go.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. I think, in short, the project for the new waste service is going well. We're definitely on track to complete successfully by next spring. I think, though, that there are a number of probably very up-to-date, almost post-writing the report, which is probably needed for you at the moment. So, over and above the main report, we have provided an initial introduction to the service to all residents. I think most of you should have seen copies of that correspondence, if you're, if nothing else, because you're residents of the district. Excuse me. We've had a very good response to that. It was deliberately targeted to get people to come back to us. Lots of people have said not before time in terms of bins rather than bags. Lots of people have said they need bigger bins, which we will work through over the coming months. And we've had some very specific queries on disposals of every kind of waste you can imagine, which I won't go into detail with tonight. We've now appointed the 2 officers to support the project One has already started, one starts in a couple of weeks' time. The one who has started is already dealing with those queries and scheduling ways that we will move forward with those customers. Thirdly, our colleagues at ECSF have further refined the collection rounds, which is part of the process to ensure that we get as much efficiency out of the project as we can. We've now got further, I suppose, acclimatisation to some of the new routes with some of the staff, which is still being worked through. Finally, we've also now finalised the delivery of bins and caddies to ourselves. That schedule has been agreed with our own delivery contractors, who will then take them out to the households. So we are still very much on track, barring any total disasters. And we've tried to allow for those, but they will be with us the week commencing the 16th of March, and they will be being delivered from the 23rd of March.
I hope you haven't just jinxed the whole thing.
No, I hope I haven't either.
Councillor Inskip, I'm not sure whose finger went up first. Ladies first. Christy, let's go for you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, had you finished, Nick? Sorry.
Yeah, that was my last.
Yes,
point.
sorry,
I was just
yes.
going to invite questions, but
Okay.
clearly members are well on the ball.
Councillor Whelan, and then Councillor Inskip.
Thank you. On the communication, obviously letters have gone out to people because I received one. Will there be duplication of letters nearer the time? Because obviously there will be people who may have read them, new people moved into the area, bearing in mind how many new houses that are being built, and a lot of people are moving up from other areas into this area. Will there be sort of another general communication sort of blitz nearer the time when the bins come out?
So our communication plan at the moment really starts to ramp up after Christmas, because clearly people's views or minds are on other things until we get past Christmas. It will then gradually be ramped up. There will be, once the bins are delivered, there will be a full pack of instructions and all the rest of it with that delivery. It gets very, very tight and, dare say, very expensive for us to completely repeat the comms that we've just put out. So it's not at the moment included for, or we haven't included a further total mail shot until all the bins are delivered to householders. There will be other points of communication we'll have through all of the normal media channels, which may encourage people to come forward, and we will continue to do that all the way through. So I think we've got it covered as far as we reasonably can. If we keep putting stuff out to every customer, every resident, I think we start to lose the impact. And actually, you know, for those, we're getting a good response from what's gone out at the moment. So I'm reasonably confident. It's a very difficult balance to run as to how many total mail shots to every resident we send out.
Just from some of the posts that I picked up, people were complaining because they got more than one letter to one in one house. So I'm not quite sure how they would feel if we papered the entire district with exactly the same information again. I get your point, but I think people moving into the area, normally the first thing they do is, what's the bins? How do we deal with bins? So I think, they'll probably be making contact in a different way. Having just sold my aunt's house, I think I would have been asked about bin collections from Tewkesbury, which I didn't know. So I think that it's part of the house sale now. They ask you, what's the method of waste collection? I think Councillor Inskip and then Councillor Colbert.
Just on the I understand the expense of doing a mail shot to the whole district. Have we thought about whether we can do anything with the when the council tax billing goes out, because that's a mail shot that goes out anyway, so potentially allows us to do that without the full cost of mailing. Just a comment and then a question. I'll let you answer that first question as well. So I thought the leaflet was and the letter was very good. I think that explained what was coming up, and I've had good feedback from residents on that as well. I have, though, had feedback on the duplicate letters from a number of people, and I've found at least one who had not just 2 but 3 duplicate letters. Obviously that doesn't reflect very well. Do we know, so I want to understand on that is, do we understand how that happened and how we can avoid that next time around? I also am aware that there's been a case of at least of some people who've had 2 conflicting letters. I think it was a Tuesday and a Thursday. They had one set of letters that talked about collections on a Tuesday and another on a Thursday. And again, do we understand how that happened and what we can do to avoid that?
Okay, so first things first, in terms of council tax, we are limited what we can put out with council tax. I've certainly done it in other councils I've worked at. I'm not sure whether through Anglian Revenue's partnership we can do that, because I assume here that they put our council tax demands out. I'm not certain if that's right or not. But if that would be a route of communication that will use if it's available, for sure. And it's then about how much extra you can put in with the council tax demand. On the second issue, we are aware of some duplicate letters. That's where people have got multiple bins. So they've bought extra bins in, and on the database that we've got, they have been recorded in such a way that when we've done the mail merge, those people have had more than one. We are aware of that. Some of them were picked out in the initial sorting process here, but some did go out in duplicate. We won't make that mistake again. People won't be getting extra letters with extra bins. If they're getting more than, if they've got multiple bins, they will get one pack when we get to the end of the process. But we are aware of it. It was just something that was picked up, I understand, in the mail merge that wasn't sorted before everything went out. And that, I guess, if we're dealing with 45,000 households to deal with, we are going to get some in error. I mean, we've actually picked some up where the address doesn't actually exist. So I'm not sure how some of those very small anomalies go in, but we know that additional bins have led to additional letters going out this time round.
Just on that last point, in terms of addresses not existing and so on, we as an authority are the source for providing all the addresses in the district. So we should have that data already in I know it's a different department, but we should hold that data.
I completely agree with you, and I think the addresses that don't exist are complete anomalies and are very small in number. The bigger one of concern is the duplicate letters, which just annoys the residents, to be honest. But I guess that's at least we're not missing those people. That's the key.
Thank you. My issue is batteries. Can we please spell out in no uncertain terms exactly what residents should do with batteries? Because in my idle moments, I sometimes read what's on the Facebook groups, and people do quite alarm me, wanting to do what other areas do, saying, "Oh, I just put them in my black bin," which leads me to the second point with regard to black bins and people not reading things properly. I tried typing in disposal of batteries into East Cam's website, and it brought up, it highlighted black bins, and it highlighted, or possibly black bags, and it highlighted batteries. What it actually said, if you looked at it properly, was do not put your batteries in your black bin. But to anybody who just looks at the highlighted words, they'd get completely the wrong idea. Sorry to witter on, do you understand what I mean?
I can understand what you mean. I have to say I haven't seen that specific point. We'll take that back and we'll make the amendments to make it clearer. And obviously, if we're dealing with black bins and black bags, that kind of amendment is being made anyway. I think there is a wider issue about contamination of both recycling and black bin waste with batteries. We were at our recycling plant or where our recycling goes, to Biffa in London on Friday, and they are having on average 2 fires a week in that plant, mainly down to vapes and the tiny batteries they have, but in terms of other batteries at all. So I think there is a real issue with batteries. We're just about to launch a contamination campaign regarding batteries, vapes, nappies, that kind of thing, in the run-up to between now and Christmas, because there is a window for us to do that without getting in the way of the bigger project. But we are aware of it and are taking action. But there's a real limit as to what we can do.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you very much. Obviously, it's engaging your attention. Thank you. Thank you.
David Miller, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Right, I know I'm only a sub, but I perhaps can contribute something useful to this particular matter. A few comments and questions on behalf of some of our constituents. With some good, it's nice to see some positive feedback, particularly with respect to the food bins on social media like Nextdoor. There's a lack of clarity, though, that this is driven by central government, not a matter of ECDC whim, as it were. So that point may or may not be useful in future comms. Same question from two constituents at least. Can food waste be wrapped in paper? Some comment that they don't have space for a 5-litre caddy, but I suppose no one's required to actually use them. I'd like to know what to do with dead animals. I gather that the blue recycling bin can accommodate soft plastics, but it's not clear whether that extends to the types that must currently be taken to a supermarket, or whether it extends only to soft plastics like milk bottles. One final thing, I recall when the whole matter came up originally, that when the idea of several bins, the option for several different sizes of bins was discussed, it seemed that you could just request a larger bin, but now, from what I've read, you can only do that if you meet certain criteria.
It's always the case.
Okay, it's not what I recall, so, but if it was always the case, that answers that question. Thank you.
Do you want to answer that, Nick?
Yeah, okay.
Or
So
Kat?
wrapped food waste, yes. It goes into whether it's wrapped in paper or whether it's wrapped in a plastic bag, doesn't matter, because it will go into the anaerobic digestion plant and will be squeezed out. So it's only the food waste that gets processed as such. Soft plastics, we've got a legal requirement to collect them from next April. So that will happen. Essentially, that will be all flexible plastics. Primarily, that's around film, carrier bags, which are gradually reducing anyway, but all plastic bags, film, that kind of thing. In terms of bin size, there are requirements as to where, that you need to meet to have a larger black bin, bigger families, people with special medical needs, and so on. I think I've picked those up.
Yeah,
Were there any more in your question?
Dead animals, but otherwise, no.
how many dead animals do you have, David? I'm slightly worried.
We have cats, so they
I
appear from
see.
time to time.
Okay.
Thank you.
How big are the cats? We're not talking lions, are we?
No, rodents, typically.
Do you mean you don't bury your cat's dead mice?
No.
That's what we used to do, I have to tell you.
Thank you.
Okay, so David Brown, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back to communications, and I just wonder whether we're using the vehicle of village magazines to get the message out as well. We will be. The launch communication was to everyone with the calendar. Village magazines, parish councils, I think every channel that we could think of will be utilised. I know Kat is attending the next parish council forum as well. Can I come back? I don't know about, I can't speak for elsewhere, but certainly in my neck of the woods, I'm aware of several magazines that aren't actually run by the parish council. So it'd be worth building up a database. So even if you just ask parish councils or councillors to let you have email addresses of the editors of the various magazines.
Our communications team
Don't have them. Yeah.
Councillor Ambrose Smith.
Thank you. I won't possibly go into the conversations that go ahead over our various bins in our household. My husband's very, very stern about this. My question really is about the number of houses that are not yet built but will be built by next spring. I mean, are you fairly confident that you are able to, put a number on the houses that were going to be built and then moved into?
So as long as we will broadly complete the rounds in terms of what we believe they are at a certain date, which will probably be right in the middle of winter. After that, we know that there will be other houses built, there will be people move in, people move out.
Yeah.
And so long as those houses are known to be completed and are paying council tax or liable for council tax, they will. Sorry, I didn't have mine on either, sorry. So long as those houses are registered or residences are registered for council tax, they will get the standard set of bins. What may happen, I think one of the councillors touched on it earlier, is that people new to the area may not have had a chance by the time they occupy those houses to make the changes that they need. So clearly they will be able to then ask for a bigger bin if they are eligible for it. But as we get nearer to the launch date or the delivery date of bins, we will be updating those almost on a daily basis because the numbers will then get smaller and smaller. So we'll pick those up in the delivery. Thank you.
Councillor, you thought I'd forgotten you, didn't you? Councillor Trapp. No, I'd forgotten.
Sorry, I was going to make this. First of all, I was going to make the same point as Councillor Brown has made, which is that parish mags. Our parish mag actually has a sort of bin collection when our bins are going to be collected the next month. So that's always there, and I think that's a very good. And the same thing with parish councils. I also wanted to commend you on 315, somewhere down the middle of it, where you've actually checked and sense checked, I think is the word, with existing operational staff, and I think that's very laudable and very good. And I think that one of the problems that occurred when we changed the things in about 3 years ago. And also I commend you on 318 of getting things done in time before other councils got their orders in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Vellacott.
Thank you, Nick, both for taking so many questions and for your amazing leadership on this. I know it's a huge rollout, so thank you very much indeed. Some of my residents in Soham have been asking me specifically about lack of space for an extra bin. I have some of the more urban areas in Soham are flats, and so they're quite small flats. Could you just remind me of the criteria for those who will not receive a black bin for the size of house, and whether those, if residents met the criteria, whether that is applied automatically?
So from memory, and I'm worried I might get thumped from behind if I get this wrong. If people are already on the alternative service, which is plastic bags, where they don't have bins at the moment, they don't have the space for them, they will continue with that. If people are now saying, we're now going to have bags instead of bins, there is a conversation. We're now having bins instead of bags, we haven't got room for another bin. There's some questions to be asked. Now, if we can't resolve that by phone call and discussion, because the question will be largely, where do you put your black bags now? Because your bin should be able to fit in that space. If, there's some common sense things. If people have got 4 cars and they're driving tons of room, they're going to have a bin. But we recognise there are some people, particularly in some of the smaller urban areas particularly, where there just is not enough room. We will work with them to do the best thing for us and them. I'm sure there will be some compromise, but ultimately, if you have space for the bin, we will deliver a bin to you. And that's the long and the short of it. In terms of flats where we've got communal bins, there is the same provision will be made, but there it's often going to be dealing with land agents and landlords to make sure that we've got enough communal bin volume for the residents of that property.
Sorry, to follow up on your last point about flats with communal bins, will there be a communal food waste bin as well?
So people will then have, it will depends on the size of the block of flats, because some of them it's easier to actually have an individual indoor and outdoor caddy. When we get into some of the bigger blocks, there will be communal food bins as well.
And I would just like to echo my thanks and say I think you've done an absolutely fantastic job. I mean, this seems to be going seamlessly, and just pass my, yes, fingers crossed, I've got my legs crossed. If you could just pass our thanks back to the team, because they, as I say, I'm sure I'll pass on the whole thoughts of the committee. This seems to be a professional and well thought out operation and project. Thank you very much indeed for both of you. Thank you. We're happy to note the contents of this report, then we'll move on to, goodness gracious, we're flying through this. Agenda item number 10. I know I should have said that, jinx that as well. And welcome Nigel and Emma to the hot chairs to present the financial statements 24-25 and the annual government statements 24-25. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. So just to walk through the Director's Report and financial statements for 24-5. Looking at pages 56 and 57, that's the Director's Report that states the Director's responsibilities with respect to these statements. Pages 58 through 60 is the External Auditor's Report, where Price Bailey confirmed they've conducted an audit on the statements and the notes, and in their opinion they do give a true and fair view of the company's affairs as at March 31, 2025, and that there are no issues with using their going concern principle. The penultimate paragraph on page 59 says that there's a high level of assurance that the accounts are free of material misstatement. Page 61 has the profit and loss account. I won't go through the numbers in detail. They are the same as those that I presented in the management accounts in the meeting in June, but in summary, a small profit of £4,984. Similarly, the balance sheet on page 62, same figures as in the management accounts again, and the company having net assets built up of just over 21,000. Page 64 has the cash flow statement reconciling the opening cash balance of 277,000 with the closing cash balance of 786,000. This shows that 520,000 was generated from the trading activity, and that was as a result of ECDC settling their debt with the company slightly ahead of the year end, but ECSS didn't reciprocate until the week just after the year end. And then on pages 65 through 77 are the notes to the accounts. The main ones that I think are worth noting are 1.2 on page 65, which talks about going concern and notes the agreements reached with council on the future service. Note 3 on page 70 is employee numbers, showing an increase of 2 people overall and an increase of costs of about 179,000. 104,000 of this increase in costs related to last year's pay award. And then finally, note 5 at the bottom of page 70, just to say that although the company made a profit, there wasn't any tax payable because the capital allowances that we can claim from tax were higher than the depreciation charged in the accounts. And I think Emma's going to walk through the annual governance statement.
Thank you, Chair. So the annual governance statement, members will have seen this last year because it was introduced for the first time after the Council's internal auditor recommended that its companies also produced an annual governance statement, and it was approved by the board on the 16th September. So I don't intend to go through the annual governance statement. There's nothing of significant to bring to your attention. We've reviewed the Articles of Association. We were in full compliance there for ourselves, and then we were in compliance with the shareholder agreement. Something of note for the upcoming year is the retirement of the Chief Executive, who is also the Managing Director of the companies. So the Council will need to appoint another director to that body, but that will be a Council decision, not a company decision, and then the company will appoint, because it formally has to, whoever the Council puts forward. So there's nothing new in the annual governance statement that you wouldn't have seen throughout the committee throughout the year. It also comes from the business plan, which is reported on. So it's just here for you to note. The Board of Directors have approved it as part of their now process. So just happy to take questions, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for either Nigel or Emma? I have got Councillor Inskip and Councillor Vellacott.
Yes, so two questions then, both relate to the annual governance statement. The first one is the part of the statement says we believe that by continuing to develop services that we offer, we'll be able to deliver services that are, and then has the words profitable, sustainable, flexible, and focused on meeting the needs of local people and businesses. I'm curious about the use of the word profitable in that, because I think from a if we're looking to run commercial services, I can see that, but I'd have thought the main business in terms of the services that are run at the moment on behalf of the council, we're not looking for ECSS to make a profit. The other one I have is it says the company will continue to support the council's ambition to achieve the 60% recycling rate and reduce the impact to the environment. Now, historically, I would have said the main contribution from ECSS to do that has been the sort of promotion of recycling and so on. But my understanding is that's now being moved from ECSS to the council. So I'm trying to understand what remaining activities ECSS does in terms of promoting or helping to achieve that recycling rate.
Through you, Chair. So on the last point, we obviously with the collection service, we also share information with the council so that they can target their activities around how to further increase that recycling rate. But I do take your point. It probably won't be so front and centre in next year's business plan, because I think this year was the first full year of that division of responsibility, so I absolutely take your point on that. In terms of commercial, this is still because it's still a possibility that we can undertake other activities, small activities, and we need to make sure that they are profit making, but we are not. We do operate at, we want to achieve a break-even position. So we're not in that commercial world. Profit in the sense that we need to make sure that we look after the money, and where we do the odd small contract pass-through from the council, that there is enough to cover our costs and also enable us to, anything we do get, to deliver something for the service and perhaps reduce the council's management fee slightly. So it's not major works ongoing. So it's not huge profit commercial driven. That's not to say that in the future, but that will be something that we'll be discussing with the council before we do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Emma. Do I understand it correctly that the Managing Director of the trading companies is not a coterminous office with the Chief Executive, and Council would need to make a separate appointment?
So as it stands through the business plan, it says that the Managing Director is the Chief Executive of the Council, but they are two different roles and responsibilities, each requiring their own appointment mechanism. They would be on the Board of Directors, because the Council chooses who to appoint to that board. So, but they have two separate roles and responsibilities, each defined differently in law. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Two simple questions, I suppose. Would I be right in assuming or thinking that the Articles of Association don't provide for paying dividends, and therefore all profits, whatever you want to call them, remain within the company for the use of the company for its designated purposes? Would that be a safe statement to make?
Through you, Chair, I can't remember off the top of my head what the Articles of Association says, but it is for the company to determine, no matter what its governing documents, whether or not to pay a dividend to the council, because it must first satisfy itself that it's met all of its debts and liabilities for making such an offering. For ECSS, as the driver isn't one of profit, it is unlikely that it will pay dividends to the council. But it would be a decision of this committee, if the company was to offer a payment, it would be a decision of this committee as the shareholder committee to make a recommendation to full council about what it does with the dividends flowing through, because you could choose to reinvest it back into the company, for example. But that would be a matter for full council.
If I may return, sort of where I was going with that question was, if they're not paid out, then, I mean, supposing they were paid out and reinvested, that would be one thing. But if they were never paid out, if there were never any dividends, then any profits generated could only ever be used for the purposes of public service.
Thank you. Any further questions for either Nigel or Emma? No, in which case we're happy to note these, we're all happy to note?
Sure.
Yeah, and we will move on. Thank you very much for coming in. And we move on and welcome Jude next for agenda item number 11, which is the budget monitoring report. Welcome, Jude.
Thank you, Chair. At the end of the first quarter, the committee is projecting 30k underspent compared to its revenue budget of 6.8 million. And for the capital expenditure, the projected outturn position is in line with the budget of 12.8 million. The details are in the Appendix 1 and 2 of this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude. Do we have any questions for Jude on the budget monitoring report? Councillor Whelan, very quick.
Page 92, the community safety, it says there is a current vacancy in the post supported by the Police and Crime Commissioner. This will result in less grant being received later in the year. Are we will we lose the grant if the vacancy isn't filled, and how much grant are we actually getting at the moment? But obviously my concern is if the vacancy isn't filled, then you know, there will be a substantial reduction in the grant received. Have you got any details of that, please?
I don't have any detail for that, but I can find out for you. But definitely we will lose the grant income if we don't fill the vacancy.
But it would just be for the covering that vacancy. It would not be the whole grant, it's just the grant covering that vacancy. Yes?
That's correct,
Yeah.
yes.
If you could circulate that information
Yes.
to all the members of the committee,
Yeah.
I'd be grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jude.
Yeah.
Any other question? Oh, Councillor Trapp.
Don't be so surprised,
Look,
Chair.
you're waving your finger at me, John.
Well, wasn't at you, it was at the ceiling, actually. Care and repair, do we sort of do some improvements to clients' homes in Fenland as well as East Cambs?
We are undertaking some work for Fenland District Council to repair their properties. So at this is, we have done the work, but we have not invoiced them. That's why we are in deficit here.
Thank you very much.
So just a point of clarity, we won a contract with Fenland, so we are doing all of their DFGs on their behalf, and we receive a management fee to do that. So we're not just doing it out of the kindness of our heart.
Thank you very much.
I just say, I don't want to be doing things like that. Right, do we have any other questions for Jude? In which case, and if we're happy just to note this report, and thank you for your time. Thank you, Jude.
Thank you.
And now we move on to agenda item 12A and 12B. 12A are the minutes that we erroneously missed in the June meeting. Are we happy to note these, and also 12B, which is the meetings for June, well, 18th of March and the 17th of June. Are we happy to note these? Yeah, terrific. Okay. We now move on to agenda item 13, which is the forward agenda. Our next meeting is on the 17th of November. I don't think there's anything that we need to add to that particular committee at this stage. There's nothing come forward from today. So we're happy again to just note that. Oh, sorry. Councillor Inskip.
Yeah, not for that meeting, but for the January one, I noticed we have an update we don't have an update on the waste service. And I know the January agenda's looking quite light at the moment, so
It is, isn't it?
that may or may not happen. but if it does, I think, given the significance of the waste collection changes, I think it would be good to have an update there.
Okay.
If there is anything, because it's before the financial year.
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll discuss the January meeting in November and see whether or not we think there's anything that can't be circulated to members rather than holding a committee meeting, if that's agreeable to one and all. Okay, so we now need to move into exempt session. Can I have somebody propose that we move into exempt session, please? Councillor Brown, and seconded by Councillor Ambrose Smith. Thank you to everybody. The open part of this meeting is now finished at 17:31, and we move into closed